Welcome. Today I am repping best little sister of the Hermit Arcana because that is what I feel like. There are 44 shows on this roundup. I don't know if this is where I say you're welcome or I'm sorry. That being said, though, this actually was a pretty good season all around. There were only a handful of things that I wasn't expecting to impress me that impressed me. And then there were quite a few things that I was expecting to be really good that were really good. Mostly the sequels that we'll cover towards the end. Hopefully this doesn't go too long. I have no idea what's about to happen, so buckle up. We're in for the long haul. First on the list this season is The Summer Hikaru Died. This is actually pretty solid. It hooked me before I even realized it. This is normally the kind of show I'd be a little critical of, or maybe not care as much about as some other types of shows that I prefer, but I actually feel like this one jumps into its premise pretty well right from the start, and it expands on it in a way that really fits the style. I just think it carries itself well. It's like, I'd like to say that I wish some of the characters mattered more. Like, I can't remember anybody's name except for the main two, but at the same time, I feel like it was going for something a little more creepy and haunting. It's like a peek into this fucked up reality that these characters live in every day. It really nailed it in that aspect. The animation looks really good too. The haunting, like the very creepy scenes are done really well. It never feels too slow pacing wise either. It's really all about developing this oddly fucked up yet wholesome relationship between Yoshiki and this now otherworldly monster thing with the body of Hikaru, his best friend. And this kind of thing is definitely a trend I've been seeing over recent years where characters get put into a position that is purposely not fully relatable. Then they kind of cope or deal with it in a sort of nonchalant way, right? I mentioned this exact kind of thing with Jigoku in my last Roundup video that I did. It's the same kind of feeling. They cope with the fucked up shit like, Yoshiki would be like, oh, hey, so some sort of demonic abomination is living inside my best friend's body? That's kind of weird. Can I finger your hole? Like, if I try to imagine what Yoshiki's going through upon learning about Hikaru and his situation now, I find it super hard to fully comprehend the entire spectrum of complex feelings that he'd have, right? And it's completely understandable how he constantly goes through short emotional bursts of feeling okay and feeling not okay with the whole Hikaru situation. So I do think he's a good character in that aspect for sure, but it's just personally, at least, for me, I like to feel attached to characters when I watch anything, pretty much. That's the kind of thing that I carry with me beyond the experience of just watching it, right? The characters I really like. And, again, I mentioned it, aside from the main two, none of the other characters really play any massive role. Like, the next biggest character is, I can't remember her name, but there's this girl that's one of their classmates, and she eventually realizes the truth about Hikaru as well, despite the demon's best attempts to blend in, and she sort of has a similar coping method as Yoshiki does. But even she doesn't really play that big a role in anything. And it is a good relationship that... good. I say good, but it's a little fucked up. I think they do well building the relationship between Yoshiki and the new Hikaru, right? It's interesting. It's a little messed up, right? And yet somehow it is oddly wholesome. So I do think that's good. It's just nothing beyond enjoyable. It's something that you can watch and feel entertained by, and then you never have to think about it again, which is good for a Netflix anime, I think, with, all the normies subscribed to it. So I think that's perfectly fine. It's very of the modern day, right, where it's nothing too deep, it's just something you can watch and feel entertained by, and it's a little fucked up. I say a little. Yes, it depends on what your gauge of fucked up is, right? And I do think it's well done in pretty much every aspect, but it just doesn't really do it for me personally. Like, it's good that it was entertaining, but what else is there to it beyond that? Also, also the fact that there were other, like, SCPs or whatever, there were other, like, ghosts and otherworldly shit, other godforsaken creatures involved here and there throughout this. They just sort of ended up being reduced to nothing, or just, like, you know, props to prop up the relationship development between Yoshiki and Hikaru. It just seems like a weird thing to include, to just throw it away for that. But what do I know? Again, this was not bad. Definitely enjoyable. Next up is Secrets of the Silent Witch. This is super cute. I really like it. It's basically if Bocchi the Rock was about a witch in a fantasy world. For those who haven't seen it, this one's whole bit is that humans cannot manipulate mana without chanting, but there is one genius who made the impossible possible. And Monica, the main character, is the Silent Witch, the only mage in the world who can cast without chanting, which she learned how to do out of sheer force of will because she's too shy to chant in front of people. Now, of course, it's not exactly that simple when it comes down to it. You know, her father, I can't remember if it was actually her actual father or just her father figure, but the person who taught her about magic was wrongly witch hunted, essentially, for apparently studying dark magic or whatever, and she ended up getting abused by her uncle, who was dealing with the fallout of that, like having a criminal in the family, so he'd constantly shout and physically abuse Monica just for opening her mouth. So it's this very instilled fear that she spends these episodes trying to get over, and she does make a fair bit of progress with that throughout this, which is good stuff. As far as what actually happens in, you know, the story, there's actually a surprising amount of twists and turns throughout this, but the student council that Monica is suddenly made a part of is always there to support her, and that's the main bit, right? Like, the whole thing is the student council are the people that she spends the most time, and they spend the most time getting to know her. She gets to know them, and she becomes more comfortable speaking with them as it goes on, and she comes to trust them. They come to trust her, even without knowing that she's the Silent Witch. The whole bit, she's infiltrated the magic school to protect the second prince without making a big fuss, right? Because she's the Silent Witch, one of the 7 mages. If news got out that she was in there, everybody freaked the fuck out. So now, in that sense, it's not too different from other fantasy shows where the main character attends a school and ends up on the student council surrounded by high-profile pretty boys. But the potential romance is only a small part of this. And, you know, the obvious path for the romance is between Monica and the second prince, who she's meant to protect, Felix. And for what it's worth, I do think that angle is fine. It's not given too much time or anything, which I think is a good thing. The romance is not really what should be focused on here, but it is okay. Like, you know, there's very clearly supposed to be some amount of chemistry between them, somehow, chemistry. But it's more about Monica slowly earning the trust and the respect of the student council. And aside from that, too, I actually really like her friendship with Lana, who is one of her classmates. There's a really good moment of their, like, budding friendship when Monica confronts her old friend, Bernie, at the chess tournament. Not Sanders, unfortunately. That being said, aside from Monica trying to come out of her shell a bit, the most notable plot point is probably the unraveling of the Horse Girl's attempt to assassinate Felix. I was literally just about to write down in this review how there seemed to be a group of 4 girls who were oddly reminiscent of the girls in Kesoku Band, to continue that comparison, until the Horse Girl turned out to be the assassin, or one of many assassins, rather. But the show does go out of its way to show her backstory, the Horse Girl's backstory, and her motivations for the attempt, which made her out to be at least somewhat justified in how she felt. Maybe not in going so far, right? But in her, at least her feelings about, you know, she went through some shit. And it's not often that Monica busts out her super impressive magic like she does when dispelling the spiral flame that's supposed to take out the prince that was set up by the Horse Girl. But when she does use her magic, it's visually stunning. So the animation doesn't slack off on this one either. So yeah, this isn't exactly action-packed or particularly compelling from a plot standpoint, but it is absolutely very charming and enjoyable, if for nothing else than watching Monica try to open up a bit more within this nice little fantasy setting. Like, Monica is one of those lead characters who make you want to root for her instantly. Like, she immediately won me over, and I will be keeping her in my thoughts for some time to come. What a sweetheart. Next up is the fragrant flower blooms with dignity. I will be the first to admit I was going into this expecting some bland slice of life romance that would be like, I'd come out the other end and be like, yeah, it was fine, whatever. And then I forgot to start writing a review until like episode 11 because it was so cute. I got. This is an absolute delight. There is so much to like here. Obviously, the main romance between Karuko and Rintaro doesn't even need me to sell it to you. It is so cute right from the start. A romance between people who seem like they'd be opposites, plus have social odds stacked against them, is a tale as old as time, but these two really have something about them that just works. It can be surprising just how fast you end up letting your guard down when you meet the right person, and these two are that person for each other, despite the hostility between their neighboring schools, and Rintaro really starts gaining new perspective on pretty much everything in his life from as soon as he meets Karuko, so she's an immediately super positive influence on him. And Karuko, on the other hand, is just this absolute ray of sunshine that met Rintaro once at the patissier where he works, that his family runs, where he was kind to her on a particularly bad day, and she began to frequent the place, hoping she'd see him. So they just really have such a cute dynamic. They're both unwaveringly kind, and even from very early on won't give in to outside pressure that may have kept them from getting to see each other more. I really do think they're great, and the way Clover works with their facial expressions and demeanors throughout this is just masterful. You can tell, even with the thing muted, that they're super into each other. And the thing about it is, it could have just been that, but a lot of the relationships between either of the main two, and other characters in the show, it sort of orbits around the main two's budding relationship. Subaru is a highlight for me. She's probably the character that actually has the most amount of like obvious growth out of anybody in this entire show for this season. Her development actually like overarcs until near the very end of the season, and it's all good stuff. And the way that Subaru and Karuko eventually come to be friends with Rintaro's little squad is actually super sweet. Whenever the 6 of them were all together, I was sitting there grinning like a damn fool. And this show even spends time highlighting how Rintaro's squad are like his first real friends, and like no matter what, they won't think any differently of him, even if he's got his hair dyed, or he's his family runs the patissier, which doesn't fit his image or whatever, since he's real tall and like has more masculine, ragged features. Both of those things he was treated poorly for earlier in his life. So they just have a great friendship going on. It even has this really sweet angle with Rintaro's mom, where it's revealed that she dyed her hair blonde years ago as well, around the same time that Rintaro did the same, so that Rintaro wouldn't have to feel alone in that aspect. Again, it gives time to stuff outside the main romance angle. It's really good. Every so often there is a slice of life or a romance that will bust through my defensive wall. My defensive wall made up of like One Piece, Fairy Tail, Black Clover, Blue Lock, that kind of thing. This did it for me. It really was excellent in every single aspect. If you like romance anime even a little bit, do yourself a favor and watch this on Netflix. It is an absolute joy. Like, I've said that about quite a few anime in these realms, but this is just, wow. What a gift of a show. I said, Hikaru Died was also on Netflix. Maybe you can pirate it. Netflix has been doing some fuck shit recently, so do what you have to do. Next up is Clevatess, the king of the devil beasts. The concept for this is a little contrived. I don't care that much, but it's kind of unbelievable that this all-powerful dark beast sound destroying anything that speaks could be convinced by like a single dying human that a human baby is worth taking in and caring for just to satiate some weird sense of curiosity it supposedly has. Like, ultimately, I'm willing to forgive it and all. Obviously, like, suspension of disbelief is like the last thing I give a fuck about. You can make anything work if you do it right, but even the angle at the end that sort of addressed that, like why the Clevatess ended up taking in Luna, didn't really resolve it for me. Because it really just boiled down to a pretty standard, humanity sure has piqued my curiosity. What strange creatures whose emotions are so powerful that they can overcome so much. They can surpass their limits with the power of emotion, whatever. But sort of in that same vein, with the premise, I do like how it focuses on the theme of like children can't choose the circumstances they're born into, and then that plays into how you can choose how to deal, what to do with what you're given, and it's all good takeaways you can bring to real life. But other than that, this is damn solid, I think. It's not particularly distinct from any other dark fantasy anime per se. It's not like necessarily that much better or worse or have anything overtly interesting in comparison, but the way it handles both Alicia and Clevatess, or Kren, his little human persona, makes the dynamic decently fun to watch and makes you want to know how everything plays out. So it absolutely has the potential to get you invested depending on who is watching, right? Who and what your interests are. It has a really strong sense of world building throughout this, and though sometimes I think it's a bit vague when it shouldn't be, it mostly handles the mystery behind everything pretty well. It's one of those worlds where a lot of what lies at the foundation of their society is built on a just lack of understanding of certain things, and no one's bothered to question it until now, of course. So, you know, like, the heroes' legends may or may not be lies, or it may be just exaggerated, but the regalias are the real deal, and, like, no one knows the full extent of, like, how the heroes' legends are playing into what's going on now. I don't know. There's a lot of lack of understanding, but it keeps up the intrigue, right? Also, the, like, Cold War-esque dynamic between all of the Lord of Dark Beasts makes the world more interesting as well. Because it's not like they're all aligned on the same side. They're all independent of each other in actuality, and each one is making their own moves at any given time. Feels like it keeps the tension up. And of course, in this particular season, we see that in the form of the bird guy, whose name I don't know, and Drell, of course, the sort of main antagonist of this. And on top of that, I think the main character, Alicia, has a pretty strong character arc. Throughout this, she starts out like completely loyal, like blindly devoted to the kingdom, even though they basically sent her on a suicide mission at the start to slay Clevatess. But by traveling with Kren and Luna, she's able to like take a step back and see things a little more clearly. A lot of the stuff she says in the last 2 episodes draw a nice line under her character development up to that point. Even her getting revenge on Drell for her dad is a reasonably compelling arc in itself, I think. So yeah, overall pretty strong. It's got season 2 announced. I'm curious to see where it goes next. If you like dark fantasy, I definitely recommend it. Next up is Apocalypse Bringer Mynoghra. World Conquest starts with the civilization of Ruin. This is cute. It doesn't sound cute, but trust me. I mean, this is like any gamer's dream. It's basically just this dude playing a fantasy 4X game as an evil overlord with his girlfriend sat next to him watching and even participating. Except he's in the game and his girlfriend is an elf and she's super overpowered and devoted to him. It's great. Especially at the start, those two have a particularly cozy vibe about them. It's just really nice to watch. That said, it goes deeper than that. Of course it does. Since we're now inside the game, we get to see other units who we get to see like the actual units moving and the sort of discourse or the motivations behind what each unit in the 4X game sense, a unit in the 4X game moving about. We actually get to see those people in this anime, right? That would otherwise we never would have seen if it was just a 4X game. So there's a dynamic contrast, I'll call it, going on sometimes with, I'll use the elf girlfriend Otto as an example. There's a unit of holy knights that approach their little isolated forest where the main character is building his little kingdom. They were sent to that forest because some saint lady said there was an omen of the apocalypse there. She was right. But the Holy Knights Brigade gets there, negotiates with Otto a bit, before it eventually breaks down, and Otto just fucking slaughters the entire troop of Holy Knights. And brutally, too. She brutally slaughters the entire troop of Holy Knights. But then, like, very soon after that, she's back with the main character, like, "Oh, I can't believe you won't pay attention to me, King Takuto." Is that a dynamic contrast? It is actually kind of fun to watch on a strange level, and there's a lot of instances of that sort of, even beyond the girlfriend Otto, right? There's a lot of instances of that, like, oh, this is actually kind of fucked up, but they're so silly. that kind of contrast. And there are a decent amount of twists and turns along the way, especially after Isla gets summoned and the Demon Lord's army comes in. We learn there are a number of other folks who are isekai'd into various characters or circumstances too, in addition to the main character. Plus the twin girls, the twin dark elf girls who are introduced pretty early on, go through quite an emotional roller coaster throughout this. I wouldn't say the overall story of this is particularly compelling or anything, but for what it is, I think it's pretty good. It's certainly enjoyable if nothing else. It very much fits in with a lot of other civilization building style of anime. Its pacing is alright, and the major conflicts have some breathing room between them, so yeah, I liked it. Next up is Scooped Up by an S-rank adventurer. This is a decent, innocent little fantasy show. Enjoyable, even. It doesn't take itself too seriously, kind of has a slow but steady pace. It's got a well-defined set of characters leading it, which I like, and I do generally like all of the main cast as well on a personal level. I like seeing them. I like watching them too. And the world building too of this isn't half bad. It's not great, but it does flesh itself out a decent amount. It's just a little confusing sometimes. There's a lot of talking with characters outside of the main cast that just never amounts to anything. But the whole bit here is that our main character Lloyd is cracked out, but he thinks he's trash. We've seen it a gazillion times before, but the idea is that his master, Merlin, basically drilled into him while she was training him that he should never get a big head for any reason, and that he always still has a long way to go or whatever. I'm still lacking in power is what he says, or some shit like that. In the first bit of this, it legitimately gets annoying, and the shtick doesn't have any staying power, right? Because it pretends that it has staying power, but it does not. And I really don't think what we get in the last episode is enough to offset how annoying it was, because apparently the reason for Merlin's constant nagging about never get a big head, you're lacking in power, apparently the reason for that is because she made a mistake. Like we hear it a few times throughout this, that Merlin made some kind of mistake in the battle, some deciding battle with the Demon Lord or whatever, where the hero, the previous hero, Sibyl, what the fuck is his name? Who cares? He's dead, basically. She blames herself for that, and apparently is an issue of some sort of overconfidence, and we don't know anything about it until episode 12, the last episode of this. And this is like a defining thing, right? Like, this is gonna be the reason that Lloyd has this confidence issue. So we don't learn anything about it until episode 12, which is already kind of bad. But apparently what happened was during that fight, the heroes party, including Merlin, had the Demon Lord on the ropes. And they were like, oh yeah, we got him! And they kind of let their guard down for a second when the Demon Lord basically pulled a Mount Moon Geodude and tried to use self-destruct and take everything down with him. But Sibyl used, taboo, ancient magic, or whatever, to keep that from happening, to keep the explosion from going off. And that's supposedly why Merlin wants to never let Lloyd get overconfident, when that really wasn't a matter of overconfidence in the first place. You just let your guard down for an instant, because you were winning the battle. It's not like you went in there being like, this Demon Lord ain't shit. I'm the man. He's like, that didn't happen. So it didn't really justify how stupid the bit was for a long time. And also, I don't know if I fully understand why Sibyl even showed up during the part when the flashback happened, because Lloyd was trying to help one of the other characters control her taboo ancient magic spell, right? And you know, it's forbidden to by a spell cast upon the entire planet or whatever. You use forbidden magic, the planet comes after you. So he gets sucked into a black hole or whatever, and then Sibyl's spirit shows up in the black hole because he also cast ancient magic, so he's also in the black hole. He cast it back in the fight with the Demon Lord. So now he's permanently stuck in the black hole of ancient magic or whatever, and he was there to be like, you hear them, right? The voices of your friends? Go to them. And he does, and that's it. He's out of the black hole. The Lloyd is out of the black hole. Not Sibyl, he's still in the black hole. But Lloyd gets out of the black hole because he hears the voices of his friends. It's called power of friendship, baby. But yeah, plot-wise is really nothing of note here. It does actually put in some effort to make sure the main cast isn't stagnant character-wise, and introduces that de facto new member of the main cast partway through, the one who can use ancient magic. Which all helps keep this one afloat, but yeah, the story never really becomes anything meaningful. Or at least at least it doesn't in the context of these 12 episodes. Which is fine, you know, it's like I said, it's mostly enjoyable, but it's not anything more than that, it's just decent. Next up is There's No Freaking Way I'll Be Your Lover. Unless. This one is okay. It's the same type of non-stop girl drama mixed with silliness that you'd expect from like the Whisper Me a Love Song genre of show where everybody is gay. Although I think I like Rinako more than I've liked any other lead in a show of this genre I've seen before. She's really likable on the most basic levels because she's relatable and genuine, but also tries really hard even if she fails miserably. It's really charming. That being said, the only other main character in this that really does anything for me is Senna. Ajisai, I think is her last name. I do think Mai and Satsuki are alright too, and the little arc that focuses on their complicated friendship is decent enough, but I don't know, it's just not for me, I guess. Senna though, like despite the fact that her thing is like, I'm scared of change, I don't want to mess up what we already have, I'm not brave enough to take the first step, and that's a kind of character arc that's been done a million times. I still think she makes it work quite well given her situation. Also makes sense for her character given her background as well. She gave up a lot so that she could help raise her little brothers and couldn't afford to want much for herself. So her little arc is pretty good, I think, but Mai and Satsuki's arcs are both kind of just okay for me. Other than that though, this show has a really nice art style. Great voice acting, especially Renako's VA. I think she does a wonderful job. It has pretty decent pacing and is fairly good fun for a slice of life romance anime. I would say it's good. It's not really for me though. It's a lot of drama. You know, the divorce rate of lesbian marriages is like 70-something%. For het marriages, it's closer to 50%. And for gay marriages, it's like 25. So, all that is to say, this show has a lot of drama that I feel like is ultimately pointless. But hey, straight man over here, I am not the target audience of this show, so make of my criticism what you will. What do I know? Next up is Dealing with the Mikadono Sisters is a breeze. I actually like this one quite a bit. It's really cute. It's got a really solid foundation, a good set of main characters with you at the center, and not you, but YU, that's his name, the main character's name. And it's a fun dynamic between them as well, with you being like very steadfast and undaunted as he is as a character, plus the show's good pacing and escalation of the dynamic. It really feels like the romance comes seamlessly, which isn't always the case for these kinds of shows. I find the Mikadono sisters themselves all properly charming as well. They, growing up, had their dad drill into them that accomplishments are everything, and you know, your life has no meaning if you don't accomplish things, if you aren't being the best at something or whatever. You're not allowed to have like regular happiness. You're gifted. You're geniuses or whatever. You have to excel at something. And I think the way that you is able to help sort of break that at least a little bit within them, sort of shatter that mindset a little bit, despite of what their dads drilled into them, is really sweet. I like, they all have their own little arcs throughout this, where they have a little bit of trouble that they wouldn't normally have. You know, this is after Yu has moved in with them, right? And Yu is able to help them overcome it. It just kind of helps drill home what I think this one wants to get across, that all the talent and success in the world won't necessarily make you happy, but someone to come back to who genuinely wants the best for you almost always will. And happiness is almost always reflected in your actions too, at least I think so. I think it's easy to tell when someone isn't happy in what they're doing. And that resonates with me too, as someone who makes stuff. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, especially in a creative endeavor, or even like a sports endeavor, I think it comes across. In addition to all that, it's silly in the right places, has a great sense of humor too. It's just a pure, wholesome delight of a romance. I guess it's a harem romance show. It's just good stuff, man. Really enjoyable. Next up is Ruri Rocks. Ruri Rock. This is super wholesome and pretty fun for what it is. I mean, I did come into this expecting a 13-episode mineralogy lesson, featuring some expeditions for rocks, maybe so you have a little bit of life lessons to take away, plus plenty of fan service mixed in, and that's pretty much what I got. But this actually did exceed my expectations in some aspects too. The animation is super expressive and fun, and the main character Ruri is a sweet little goofball. Her whole thing is that she's able to find a renewed sense of enjoyment in her life by learning and studying about rocks and minerals and shit with the help of these mineralogy grad students that she started hanging out with. It gives her something to study and learn about, and something where her effort can tangibly pay off as well. She also has some uncertainties about her future in the later stages of this show, and this new venture helps her, not necessarily rid herself of those worries completely, but sort of narrow her scope and figure out what it is that she wants to do. There's also a character that joins the squad about halfway through this, who was made fun of as a kid for liking rocks and stuff. It's not very girly of her. And even her parents weren't fully supportive of her going in that direction later in her life, so she had to hide it. She felt like she had to hide it. But when she joins the Rock Squad, the Ruri Rocks squad, she starts to feel truly happy again. So this whole thing, even amongst just their squad, their little 4-girl squad, has a really just warm feeling about it. Very laid-back camp-esque. Like, again, on that same vein, this is nothing we haven't seen before. You don't even have to go farther than laid back camp to find this formula for an anime, right? It's just a bunch of girls who find a hobby they can really deep dive into. And it's true to life too, right? Like, finding a hobby you can throw yourself into really can help turn your life around. Although it's their job for the grad students in this. But I mean, there's just something warm and cozy about these shows, right? Like, this one totally fits right in. It's super easy to watch, and it's actually really informative too. There are these like transitional screens that have a lot of fucking text on them. So if you really wanted to read about rocks, and obviously studying about rocks is not necessarily practical knowledge for the everyday man, but it really embodies, humanity's unyielding desire to just learn new shit, even if it isn't necessarily useful, because it's fun, right? I mean, it's basically no different from visiting a museum, but instead here it's a fun little anime with cute girls, so it's way better. Also have to shout out Miss Rei Yasta for doing the opening of this one. I love that woman. I was so surprised to hear her voice in the opening. Next up is New Saga. This is alright. I think this might just be me, but a lot of these, like, I went back to the past to correct the timeline kind of fantasy anime, they're all starting to blend together. It also makes for a very convenient solution for any issues that need solving in the plot. Like, oh, there's about to be an issue. I know that there's about to be an issue, but to figure out how to fix it before it happens, I gotta think really hard to find that one convenient line that some random person said that'll tell me where I should look. Like, that kind of thing is really prevalent in this one. There's really convenient solutions popping up from time to time. It's like, oh, because you can write it off as like, oh, that's totally something that happened. We don't know what happened in the previous time. We only saw the previous timeline for like 4 minutes in episode 1. We don't know what could have happened before the timeline got fucked. So it's a little too convenient for my liking. Maybe it's just weak. It's come on. But, characters are fine. Writing is halfway decent. The world building is, like, okay. Maybe paint by numbers. Plot really isn't particularly bad or good. It's just, like, middle of the road in every aspect. In fact, nothing of note even happens in the plot, right? I mean, nothing that like ultimately contributes to their ultimate goal of, or at least the main character's ultimate goal of preventing the demon war or whatever it is. He's just taking, I guess, like small steps to, I guess, preserve as many allies as he possibly can and just set everything up. He's in like the very early stages of preventing the war, I guess. Yeah, there's really nothing memorable about this at all. Like, you know, if I were to grade this out of 100 and like 60 or above is passing, that's a D, right? 60 is a D, like a D or above is passing, and passing into enjoyable territory, this would get like a 61. Like, it's fine. There are other shows that do this trope better. It's fine. It's not bad. It's just fine. Next up is Dekin no Mogura, the Earthbound mole. This is really strange. It's kind of like if Mob Psycho and Inspector had a really autistic child. Like, really autistic. I do think it's alright, though. Like, the writing style is very heavy on, like, that sort of shameless, off-the-wall humor that is kind of just bouncing all over the place for the sake of, like, maybe getting a random laugh out of you. And the characters are the same kind of, like, aggressively weird. Like, I do think generally it's reasonably enjoyable, and I actually found that the last arc of this, which is on the main girl's home island, to be pretty well constructed for what it was. Like, definitely the best part of the show overall. But the world of spirits in this is mostly focused on gag humor and like getting a laugh out of you rather than bringing anything to the overall narrative. Although it's not like it can't get serious when it wants to. Like, usually there is some kind of reason behind the hauntings that the characters encounter which ends up getting resolved. So that's good at least. At least there's some kind of meaning to what's going on. Not that any of it plays into the overall narrative. And even when the main guy, Mogura, meets up with someone from his distant past, because, you know, he's like a dead guy who can't get to the afterlife or whatever, the guy just doesn't recognize him at all. Like, even though Mogura looks the same as he did when they fought in the war, whatever war together. So that just ended up being a big nothing burger too. So this doesn't really bring anything particularly compelling to the table, but it is fairly enjoyable, I guess. Next up is the Water Magician. This looks really nice. It has a really nice art style and fantastic animation. A lot of the combat scenes are actually really cool to watch, and I think the writing is generally more fun than it is in most slow life anime. Feels like it cares more than other shows about making its characters likable and quirky. But other than that, it's pretty much a middle-of-the-road slow life isekai. But it definitely gets a boost for looking nice. It's kind of like campfire cooking in that aspect. There's not really a overall narrative here, but I think that's typical slow life isekai stuff, so I won't really fault it for that. And actually, I do think it does a halfway decent job of building its world so that we sort of understand all of the pieces that may or may not be in play at any time. This is definitely one of the better slow life isekais I've seen. What is kind of weird is that we spent a surprising amount of time at the tail end of this diving into the backstory of a character who I think doesn't really matter much. Like, we heard about him from earlier on in the season as like the only other magician in the world who might rival the main character in terms of pure magical ability. And then the two fight, albeit over a kind of stupid misunderstanding, and it's a cool fight visually, but it just doesn't really do anything for either of their characters at all. Slow life isekai are largely directionless, more often than not, and that's fine, but because of that, I sort of fail to see the reason for learning more about a character's upbringing, especially if they're not going to be around consistently going forward. Like, we learn way more about that guy, the Ember Inferno magician, what the fuck? Whoever he is. We learn way more about that guy than the princess who studied under him, who, at least to me, was the one out of that little group who'd get the brightest spotlight, who I thought would get the brightest spotlight on her. But she just ended up getting knocked out, and that's why the Inferno magician, and the Water magician, the main character, ended up fighting. But yeah, this is kind of just decent overall. Like, the animation visuals are really good, and most other aspects are, I'd say, probably above average. in comparison to other slow life isekai, but that still kind of just equates to decent in my book. But if this kind of show is your thing, it's definitely an easy, comfortable recommend from me. Just slow life isekai are not really my thing, but again, they're yours. This is worth a watch. Next up is Private Tutor to the Duke's Daughter. I kinda can't help but like this one. It's not that it's, not that I wouldn't have liked it if I wasn't a sucker, but this is just the kind of show that does it for me. This is my thing, if that makes sense. Like, this is my this show fits into the weird subgenre of anime that hits with me. Everyone's got their weird genre that they like. If it's like slow life, isekai, whatever. This is it for me. Whatever this is, like, it's fantasy, school fantasy shit. Where they fight a lot, too. But even besides that, my biases aside, I actually think this is pretty solid. It feels focused, like it knows exactly what it wants to do and where it wants to go. It's simple as well, so it's easy to take in. It's just about helping the main character, helping this noble lady who, by all accounts, really should be able to use magic, but can't. He helps her learn to use, control, and develop her magic ability. And as a tangent to that, the noble lady and her cute little maid enroll in a noble magic school and end up getting caught up and dealing with some plot stuff. Whatever. It's, the plot stuff really isn't that important, usually, but it's a classic anime formula that just works. I got on board with everything really quickly, even within the first episode. Like, I just wanted nothing more than for Tina's efforts to be rewarded. Even Ellie, she isn't a slouch of a character. Ellie's the maid, Tina's the princess, the Duke's daughter. The maid, Ellie, she herself isn't a slouch of a character either, and she never feels overshadowed by Tina at all, so she stands on her own. And combine those two with the main character, Alan, who's really comfortably able to hold his own as the show's lead, as like the guide through the show's story. This works on a very fundamental level, even if it never really goes far beyond the just decent level, right? Like, the world building is halfway decent. There's plenty of characters and moving parts here that can pique your interest outside of the main group. And also worth mentioning, Stella's little arc in the last third of this is, again, nothing crazy, but fundamentally sound and works for her background and character. It was nice to delve more into the character of someone outside of who we had seen much of before that. So this whole thing is just really solid to me. This isn't necessarily better or worse than like any other pretty good fantasy shows I've reviewed before, but I just found this one to be more worth investing in on a personal level. So take that for what you will. I might read the light novels of this one. I think it's really sweet. Next up is Betrothed to My Sister's Ex. This is cute. I like it. Like, it's nothing groundbreaking as far as shoujo anime go, but it's super sweet. Like, I kind of just can't help but be on board with the romance going on here. And another good thing this does, it ends in 12 episodes. It starts and ends in 12 episodes. Marie, the main character, has a, maybe not super fleshed out, but otherwise strong character arc as she learns to value herself and eventually confronts her abusive parents by the end and give them the what for. And what especially impressed me about her was how quickly she was able to turn things around for herself when she had moments of doubt. Other shows would have dragged story beats like that out to more than one episode, but this show was surprisingly efficient. And the Count himself, the love interest, Kairos, I don't know exactly how to say his name, but he totally holds his own as the love interest for this one. He's a very straightforward, no-nonsense kind of guy, which just feels refreshing for a shoujo, because he's not like, because he's very like overtly earnest, where he's like he's not the kind that would get, that would tease her, that would tease the main girl a ton or whatever, like a lot of shoujos have. And it's that earnest nature of the Counts that helps Marie overcome her own self-doubt as well. So yeah, I think this is definitely in the upper half of shoujo anime that I've covered on these roundups, maybe even the upper quarter. Like, I really properly enjoyed this one. It even had some twists and turns along the way that caught me off guard. Again, I won't spoil it, but even in even in the first episode, when I learned about what happened to the blonde sister, I was like, what? I was like, oh, thank God, the sister's not a bitch. And then Well, and then that's, that has a whole other thing too. But yeah, this was surprisingly good. I did like it. Also, just have to shout out Mio and the Count's mom too, who are both based. But Mio especially, she rules. Next up is the Shy Hero and the Assassin Princesses. This is actually pretty cute. I like the concept, and it had me won over pretty quickly. This is one of those shows that could have been fine going in a more comedic direction and just kind of staying, like, looking inward towards its silly little character dynamic, but instead actually had some little story arcs that helped work on the relationships between all the characters, and even somewhat addressed the backstories of the three main girls, which, gave them layers and motivations and everything. I surprisingly found myself a little bit attached to them. I kind of thought this would just be more gimmicky, because I was impressed they got into their backstories at all. Like, it really didn't have to do all that, but it did, and it's all the better for it. Like, even there are a couple times when it actually decided to go a little harder on the animation too, like for a couple fight scenes, and the voice acting is great too. It's just a solid, enjoyable watch. It's not the most compelling thing ever, but the comedy is pretty spot on for what it is, and the characters really aren't bad at all, so I honestly can't complain. I think it did everything it should have and more. Alright, Hell Teacher, Jigoku Sensei, Nube, reboot. Is that a reboot in the year of our Lord 2025? Who would have seen that coming? Me, actually. Big surprise. Really not much to say here. It sets up exactly what it is within the first 2 episodes and then is episodic from there. The premise does kind of scream older series and it's pretty formulaic, but I don't think that's a bad thing at all. The formula is that, Nube is the only one who can fight out of all of the sort of main cast and always jumps in to save his students when they get themselves into trouble with a spirit or demon or whatever. But I also have to appreciate it for just sticking to that formula so readily. It actually kind of works to its favor because it's just innocently enjoyable. And it does change the formula ever so slightly each time. Like, it's not always ending with Nube fighting a bitch. It's sometimes a little more nuanced than that. Plus, it's got a nice, cute little cast of characters, and the animation is surprisingly good as well in almost every episode. It's a super easy watch. Again, I said it about, I think, Urusei or whatever, Ranma. It's like Tom and Jerry, but an intellectual level above. It's not something you can just watch and be like, hey, he fell. It's not that, but it's like the same kind of formulaic sort of thing where you can just tune into an episode and enjoy it. Next up is Hotel Inhumans. This is alright. It's certainly enjoyable. It's a little different from what I would normally like, though. So this show is made up of a handful of sort of mini stories, featuring new characters with each one that are varying degrees of fucked up and or emotionally compelling. But with these 2 hotel workers who are pros at catering to professional hitmen, sort of behind the scenes of all of these happenings. It's a fun little concept. The last mini story in particular of this season, Another Sky, I believe it's called, is pretty comfortably the best one out of them all. It's got a lot of moving parts and a good backstory to prop it up. I guess overarching narrative that sort of persists throughout all of these mini stories is the guy of the main character duo Hikaru, who's a little more new to this line of work, helping professional assassins. He's more good-natured than most people who would willingly take up his position would probably be. So he stays steadfast in trying to help people out of the bad circumstances they're in if he can help it, as he learns more and more about the world of underground hitmen. And it does pay off surprisingly often. And the girl of the duo, Sarah, is this sort of cold girl who's super capable if she needs to be, but Ikaru's kindness actually starts rubbing off on her gradually as it goes on. So it's a nice little dynamic they have. But that's about all I can give you as far as an overarching story goes. Otherwise, each thing has nothing to do with the others. It is enjoyable for sure. Like I said, the concept is fun, but that's about it. Next up is Haikgakura. This is so strange. It had a good bit, to start off with, right? It's like this fantasy world where you're like a Pokemon trainer, but to catch your guys, you gotta sing to them instead of use Pokeballs. And the main character actually just ends up fucking metal screaming whenever he tries to sing. So he ends up with a bunch of weirdos as the Pokemon, well, not Pokemon, they're actually dudes in this case, that he's tamed. And the first little arc with the cute little lightning creature or whatever, it's not bad, but if you'll allow me this analogy, it really devolves into an uncontrolled mosh pit of weirdness after that. The plot feels crazy rushed. There's too many characters going around spouting cryptic bullshit that means nothing. It's all over the place. Like, it jumps from one thing to another with no room to breathe at all. Even within one conversation, the characters jump between topics like crazy. I don't understand what this one is going for at all. I wrote down some examples for you to illustrate what I mean. There's this one time when the main character and his posse have a brief reunion with the main character's teacher or sensei or whatever he is, guardian. It's some kind of animal creature, cat, tiger, lion creature, whatever. They have a 1 minute long conversation that goes along the tune of, "Oh, welcome back. I am Sensei. I am man's guardian." And, you know, the humanoid tiger Sensei guy, after that 1 minute conversation and like maybe a few extraneous lines, he starts coughing and causes a fucking earthquake, which is explained away, but I don't remember why he was coughing, but he coughs and causes an earthquake from his cough. And apparently, within that time frame that the earthquake was happening, someone stole from a stash of Peaches of Immortality, which I didn't know existed before that episode, ran off with them to Japan. This is a fantasy world, by the way. But apparently you can just dimension jump to Japan, which I also didn't know before that episode, and you need to eat a Peach of Immortality before going to Japan because your organs will explode if you go there without eating one. And there's another time in the second half of this show where the Dragon King, who we've maybe heard about once or twice before this, the Dragon King wants the moon egg so he can become master of the world or something. Again, we've never actually seen this Dragon King before. We've maybe heard of him. And the meaning of becoming master of the world is nothing at this point. In like episode 9, it's established that the Dragon King is interested in the main character, but we have no idea why. The only reason we even learn about it is because some random character arbitrarily says it at some point. Then in the following episode, it's out of nowhere just revealed that the main character has a tiny set of wings on his neck, which he's been covering up by this little scarf thing he wears, which is apparently relevant to the moon egg thing, which is a giant egg that has a set of wings on it, and is also the genesis of the big tree that grows the Peaches of Immortality. And by the way, the plot has not been about this at all in recent times. Before this, they got stuck in some weird underwater stronghold where they learned that one of the MC's little beast tamer guys might be some guy who attacked the family who was inhabiting the stronghold. He attacked them years ago and killed off some siblings or whatever, which may or may not be believable because that guy in question has multiple personalities. It just doesn't make any sense. This is pretty scuffed. It's all over the place. I don't know what it's doing. I just don't get it. It's bleh. Do not give Amazon your money to watch this. Oh man, turkey time to strike. Holy shit. I thought this was gonna be about cute girls bowling. Why are they traveling through time? Turns out, I mean, I think this must have been a prank. This must have been a bit. Because the visuals, the key visuals in the lead up to this show's debut were just the girls at a bowling alley. The main 5 girls at a bowling alley or whatever. And then in the first episode, the bowling ball starts glowing and lifts them up into the air and then brings them through time. into like the Edo period or whatever, the period of samurais, whatever period of Japanese history that was. Why? What? I thought they were gonna be bowling. Oh, but don't worry, Gus, of whenever he started this show, they start bowling. So it turns out that this is basically more of a character piece that I guess tells the story of these bowling club girls' supernatural time travel experience as they help a small Edo period village find its footing and get out of a nigh hopeless situation. And the show itself uses bowling as a sort of medium through which the characters learn more about each other. And, you know, we learn more about the individual members of that family. Like, it actually takes time to explore the characters' backgrounds. Like, not just the characters of the family from the past, right? But also the backstories and motivations of the girls from the present. There's 5 of the bowling club girls, and there are 5 sisters of the past family whose house they're staying at. So it matches up. There's a very distinct, clear, you know, match between the, you know, one-to-one sort of situation here. One girl from the present gets matched up to one with the past, who have one from the past who might have similar circumstances or similar trauma or whatever. So there's, I think, an episode dedicated to each of those 5 sort of budding friendships. You know, they're all friends, but particularly strong friendships, I guess. The one-to-ones. They get paired up. That's what I was looking for. They get paired up. But I mean, you know, it does take its time exploring all of the characters, at least a little bit. And, you know, I don't think them going back to the past after successfully making it back to the present, you know, once they learn about their friends inevitably dying, is the best decision the bowling club girls make, but it does fit their characters. It's a bit silly because the bowling is used as like the deciding game. There's like the samurai squad the samurai village who's looking to conquer their village or whatever. So the samurai are going to like make a statement by slaying the leading family, the members of the leading family, which just means all 5 of the girls that we'd spent the show getting to know. And the contest that decides their fate, you know, the enemy samurai is like, if all 5 of you get strikes, I'll spare their lives. Well, you know, that's not how it actually happened. Like, one of the present-day girls said, like, if we all get strikes in this game called bowling, you have to promise not to kill them. You have to promise to spare their lives. And he's like, fine. It's like, what the fuck are we doing? Also, this sort of big twist at the very end is a little contrived, but anything with time travel is contrived, so I can forgive it. Honestly, this just made me want an actual girls bowling anime. You know, like where they actually do competitive bowling and not time travel. I mean, it was good. This was still good. But what the fuck? Next up is Detectives These Days Are Crazy. This is actually quite funny. Although I should have expected it. Turns out the manga is by the author of Tune Into the Midnight Heart, who's a legend. But it's so gimmicky that I thought I was going to be kind of iffy on it, but I actually did enjoy myself watching it. It's got a rock-solid premise of a detective who's so behind the times, and he's putting up with exacerbated, like, old guy problems, like joint pain and digestive issues. And when he's paired up with this high-energy, over-the-top Gyaru-type girl who's, of course, super hip and has comically exaggerated physical abilities, it creates this, like, really fun little dynamic that this show has going on. It's actually very funny. The unabashed lack of shame is the secret sauce here. It just takes everything beyond the logical conclusion. Like, each chapter of the manga must have been just an endless string of yes ands until it hits the chapter page limit. Like, I really do think it's well put together and well executed, especially for such a comedy heavy show. It's properly funny. And a lot of it is in the timing, too. The repetition of specific jokes, like expressions that the characters make at certain times, delivery of the voice lines. It's all so absurd to the point that you just can't help but laugh at it. Solid stuff. Next up is Bad Girl. This is cute and fun. The sense of humor and execution is really spot on for this one. It's very much in the genre of cute girls doing cute things, but it actually goes even harder on the comedy than most of them do, and pretty much hits a home run. Or at least a triple. Like, I thought it's pretty solid for what it is. You know, I've talked about anime before in roundups, and even in this roundup video, that could have gotten by just on their character dynamics alone if they'd wanted to, but actually went outside that and went beyond my expectations. This is the one that did not do that and actually looked inward to stick to its character dynamic for the entire series. And actually, I think the dynamic that they establish and set up between everyone has enough to it that it can pretty comfortably set up new scenarios that don't feel recycled at all and put the characters in new, weird, and funny situations. New sits for the comm, if you will. Like, you know, there's a pretty well-defined, like, web of relationships between all the different characters, and each one has distinct feelings about every one of the others. So it makes for a really easily digestible sitcom featuring these adorable little ladies. But yeah, none of these characters are gonna blow your mind, obviously, they're not meant to, but the quirkiness and silliness come across really easily, and the dynamics between everyone are fun. This is absolutely in the upper echelon of the cute girls doing cute things genre of anime, for me. Suzu, the blonde girl in particular, is a highlight for me. The short little skits after the ending song that feature her sometimes really put her over. But yeah, great fun, cute little show. I like it. Cultural exchange with a game center girl. We have to, of course, shout out Miss Sally Amaki here. She's awesome. For anybody who's unfamiliar, she's, well, probably not the only person ever, but the person that I know, the only one that I know that has done the voice for the same character in both Japanese and English dubs of an anime, and pulls it off really well, actually. They, like, flew her out to Texas to have her in the English dub studio. She's super cool. So she voices the main character here, who is a British girl, and Sally's British accent really isn't that bad either. She's damn good, is Miss Sally. I have to shout her out for this one. But yeah, this is just pure innocent fun. I mean, I really don't know what else to say. It's just like these little ladies having fun at the arcade, and that's it. It's like cavity inducing. It's super sweet, not much to it at all, really easy to just enjoy and put a warm feeling in your tum-tum. Of course, it does have the questionable romance angle of Lily fancying Renji. You know, that's a middle school girl fancying a college student, but it really doesn't push that all that hard, especially as it goes on. It becomes more about Lily, the British girl, and the main character of this one, finally being able to make friends her age in Japan as she gets better at speaking Japanese. The little crush that Lily has on Renji is still there, of course, but Renji never actually acts on it at all. He plays it completely passive, as he should. So this never got uncomfortable for me at all. And as far as the cute girls doing cute things genre goes, this one's a perfectly acceptable winner for me. Like, most of the anime in this genre are winners, in the cute girls doing cute things genre are winners. It's kind of hard to get it wrong, but still, I liked it. And of course, one more shout out, I have to shout out the I'm Die Thank You Forever reference by the main character's little sister, Aoi. Legendary shit. Next up is April Showers Bring May Flowers. This is fine and all, but it's truly hard to get on board with fully when it's literally 100% high school romance drama, which I never wanted to take part of ever again. Feels weird that I reviewed anime. If I never wanted to take part of it in it again, I don't know why I ever started reviewing romance anime, but this has more high school drama than even a lot of romance anime I've covered before. High school romance anime, of course. I mean, it really is this like tangled web of feelings to and from all over the map. What's that one show that I said that about previously? I think this might have been More Than a Married Couple. It's on that level. But even though this is essentially the reverse of what we normally envision romance, or I guess more often harem anime, since the girl in this one is the one who's considered lame or unpopular or whatever, not the guy, I think it just kind of makes you want to root for the main girl Tabata in a way that guys in that role usually don't. Like, I don't know if it's because I feel bad for her, or what, because she even spouts a lot of the same lines that her male counterparts would, like, I know I'll never experience a high school life like they do in shoujo manga. Until she does. And Tabata actually monologues a lot too, thinking she's unfit to be around all these pretty people, which is again another similarity to main character guys from shows that feature the reverse dynamic. It's not like you can't understand her way of thinking, right? But I'm just a little tired of that kind of thing in all of its forms. It's actually kind of refreshing that the pretty girl who's also got a crush on the main love interest is kind of a scheming bitch. If only because it's kind of satisfying to see her, like, seethe over how nice Tabata is to her, which justifies why the love interest doesn't seem to like her as much as she likes, or as much as he likes Tabata. But, I mean, at its core, it features this sweet little romance between the main character girl who has truly wanted nothing more than to experience romance like that she sees in shoujo manga, and a guy who is just pure sunshine and falls for someone that social standards for kids their age wouldn't deem a good fit for someone so handsome. They really don't have a bad dynamic at all, and the pacing is alright too for what it is. It's just not really my thing. But hey, I think anyone who would mindlessly watch shoujo anime would probably at least kind of enjoy this. Actually, that's kind of me now, too. Mindlessly watching shoujo anime. Next up is With You and the Rain. This is very sweet. It's kind of like if 10 hours of rain sounds to fall asleep to were a slice of life anime. There's been a lot of just like slice of life anime, even on this roundup alone. But this may be the most slice of life of all the slice of life anime this season. I mean, it really just is watching our girl here go about her days after picking up this strange tanuki creature off the street. And it can write Japanese too, which is convenient, I guess. And the visuals of this are quite nice too, actually. It really nails down the vibe, has a pretty art style. But, I mean, I really have nothing else to tell you, pretty much. Like, the main character is a novelist, so she spends a lot of her time idle at home, and her picking up this very peculiar pet has helped make her dull life a lot brighter. She talks more with her friends, her neighbors, her editor, her family, and nothing of consequence ever happens. There are small developments in her life, positive developments in her life, and that's about it. But everything is very cute and sweet, and there's no denying that this has a very cozy and warm vibe throughout it. But it also does nothing beyond that to keep me engaged. I've said it before, slice of life anime are not really my thing, but as for what this one was going for, it really nails it. So if this is your thing, there's not a whole lot of anime out there that are just purely cozy, no romance involved, but feature a primarily adult cast of characters. So, just for me personally, I will never be thinking about this show ever again, but it is enjoyable for what it is. Welcome to the Outcast's restaurant. This actually has a good amount more to it than I was expecting. I was ready for the typical ultra-skilled chef guy gets banished from the hero's party by the vindictive hero. The chef proceeds to recruit a cute little lady who used to be a slave with no hope for a future to be his waitress, opens up his own restaurant, and is flooded by a myriad of adventurers, mostly cute girls. Silly shenanigans ensue. But actually, this ended up being closer to a full-on fantasy adventure show, which caught me off guard. It kind of starts off more along the lines of what I was expecting, as it brings in main characters one by one. The main character, Dennis, goes out of his way to save some of them from various pickles that they get into in the nearby dungeon. There's another recurring character who was abused by her party and was dealing with depression and unaliving thoughts before she's given hope again by Dennis and the people who are in that restaurant. So it can delve into very serious themes and still somehow bring it back to delicious food. Even the little girl who used to be a slave that comes in at the very start has some backstory that gets explored too. But the main plot thing of note in this is actually how a lot of the people that Dennis made enemies out of by saving these new friends he's made, they end up sort of colluding under the vindictive hero who kicked him out at the start to burn down his restaurant. But because they're all under the hero's party, who would have crazy leverage in court, they can't actually be blamed for the crime. So the main characters and some guys from town band together to get revenge and keep those guys, those evildoers, from interfering with the restaurant again. And Dennis also confronts his mentor, who we learned a little bit about earlier from some flashbacks. He confronts her because they'd had a dispute before he left. And that was why Dennis, even left to go adventuring in the first place. And then Dennis and the hero guy come head to head in an actually surprisingly visually impressive battle with like super good choreography and the whole shebang, which really came out of nowhere and just kind of blew me away. And Dennis realizes his life's purpose, reaches level 100, beats the hero yeehaw. But actually we get even a bit of backstory that helps show us why the hero is such a douche, which I wasn't expecting. So a lot of this comes full circle, which is good stuff. Although I was kind of expecting that red-haired swordswoman, not Urza, to play into the actual plot of this more, but she didn't really at all. She was kind of just there. So yeah, this is surprisingly good. It has a decent sense of humor too. It's actually pretty funny sometimes. It really surprised me, but with all the twists and turns that it took, I don't think any of the characters other than Dennis and maybe Atelier and Vivia in this are anything beyond just acceptable characters, but this show had pretty good pacing, giving a lot of the big drama points a lot of breathing room, and it always ends up coming home to this sort of warm, cozy vibes you'd expect from a show like this. So, and it legitimately did stun lock me with that last fight scene between Dennis and the hero. I think this one's a winner. Nukitashi the Animation. This is probably the closest I'll ever get to just reviewing actual porn that's not actually porn. I mean, all genitals are censored in this, but they might as well just be mosaicked at this point. It'd be a better experience. I mean, the opening, like the OP, starts with a 360 shot of the Statue of Liberty holding a giant dildo. Two-pronged. But this was on my list, so I wrote down a review with one hand. You're welcome. Listen, I actually am going to review this under the same lens as any other show in this video, so do not be put off when I start talking about this absolutely insane shit very seriously starting in a few seconds. Thanks. This is honestly insane and kind of hilarious just from its premise alone. It's one of those where characters have lines that you actually can't believe are real lines, and they deliver them with the same over-the-top, like, oh, sincerity, like as any other action-based anime. It's stuff like, the steel-like hardness of this weapon mirrors the dick of a young man with a pent-up libido. It can pierce any enemy. Or, I heard her pussy actually leads to outer space. Or, I'm going to assassinate the governor. Yes, it's all this show, trust me. But I mean, there's just something cool about a group of quirky wackos with a secret hideout doing spy work in a society fully working against them that's just cool in any show. But combine that with the idea that these kids are trying to bring down this society, this system that's not just normalized, but enforces constant public sex. And they're doing that for the sake of making everybody realize that sex is generally better when it's with someone you love, and you're not just doing it all the time frivolously. It's something special. Like, the main characters are constantly fighting these scantily clad enemies who are trying to enforce the public sex law upon them with what are essentially weaponized innuendos infused with futuristic tech, while their enemies just shoot actual guns at them. So it is fully aware of how insane it is, and it uses that to play everything up in a funny way. I believe this is actually based on an eroge, So I have to believe that this is like the logical extreme of how ridiculous they get, if for nothing else than my own sanity. And generally, I do like the cast of main characters because they all have something weird about them with varying degrees of how serious their problem is that is preventing them from actually having or wanting to have frivolous sexcapades like everybody else on this island. It's a very odd motley crew, but I do think they kind of make it work. Sort of. And don't think this one slacks off in the animation department either. Like, putting aside a lot of scenes throughout the 11 episodes that have a ton of sex going on all at once with more smooth motion than some seasonal anime will ever see, there are a handful of fight scenes that actually kinda slap. Or I guess clap cheeks would be more appropriate to describe this. The plot feels a little rushed to me, but the general escalation of everything is still sensible, and there's actually a surprising amount of depth to it as well. Like, there's a lot of moving parts. It's constantly showing off all of these different moving parts throughout the world at various parts of the world. The student council president is in a very peculiar situation in this. She's like the primary antagonist, I guess, throughout this. We constantly see scenes of government higher-ups chewing her out for letting the anti-copulation forces operations slip under the radar, or not enforcing sex enough, or whatever, because the student council is being funded by the government of the island. So, in turn, the student council has to enforce their sex laws. But then there's also some shades of gray within the enemy organization. You know, there's some shades of gray there, like there's some doubt the main character has to overcome because he sort of empathizes with that situation they're going through. There's some backstory that comes full circle with one of the main characters, like the blonde one. She has a past together with the main character. The plot escalates to the point where the entire nation of Japan is adopting the public sex law and all the kinds of wild twists and turns, plus a lot of different characters with various goals and motivations. I don't want to go in too deep, but this sure is quite a show. I mean, at the end of the day, how many shows can you say have a fight scene where the final blow is sticking a chain of anal beads into somebody's ass? If I had to say, this is good. Yeah, it's good. Next up is City the Animation. I'm keeping this one short because it seems like a Kyoto Animation passion project, and we are not going to hold that against them. Never. I think most everything they've done since the tragedy has been sequel seasons or movies, so we are going to let them have their fun. That being said, this is absolutely enjoyable. I really don't know what else to tell you. If you're someone who's an animation nerd, though, I think you'll really get a kick out of this. Even an idiot like me can tell they did a lot of unusual things throughout this in terms of what they did with the animation. I don't know if they were experimenting or what. I think some of what they were able to do is probably thanks to the simple art style this one has, but I don't know that for sure. I'm just an idiot. But there's not a lot to this that I feel like I need to touch on. It's a silly, easy little watch that takes you through the overly goofy daily lives of a few groups of characters throughout this cartoon city. It's a lot of unrelated shenanigans of the same style you'd see in shows that I've even talked about in this roundup, like Detectives These Days or Bad Girl, in the sense that there's no real story they're telling here. It's just a brief establishment of character dynamics and then off to the silly races, and that's it. So if you're looking for a show to drag you on silly little adventures for no reason, this is certainly it, and I'm glad Kyoto Animation are having fun. Because this is certainly fun. Moving on to Tutor's Witch Watch. This is mostly a delightful cavity-inducing show. Mostly. There are absolutely times throughout this where it does a one-off weird sitcom scenario and I'm like, alright, this bit is not worth the time and effort that we're putting into it. But for the most part, even stuff that doesn't contribute anything to the overall plot is still fun and enjoyable thanks to the characters, and the voice cast of this is fantastic and brings everything to life really well. I mean, it's just a very cute premise, and the development of the romance between Nico and Morihito is quite cute. And there's also a lot of supporting characters who have cute and fun stuff about them that gets the spotlight here and there, like even outside of the main cast who live in the house. But at least what's covered in these 25 episodes doesn't really get around to any truly important parts of the story. Like, there's some minor plot developments here and there, but it's really, really few and far between. It's more about the sitcom aspect, for sure. It's an anime sitcom in its most pure form. And, you know, again, I do generally like all the characters, and there's enough quirkiness and nuance to everything that really helps carry this one fairly well. It's like I mentioned earlier, there's a pretty clear dynamic between everybody where, you know, everyone's got feelings about every other character. Like, pretty clear, well-established thoughts and feelings about everybody else, which often plays into the comedy. You know, again, some of the bits are not really worth it for me, but overall, this is solid and absolutely enjoyable. It's worth the watch if you're into slice of life or sitcom stuff, but it is really quirky. Really quirky. And I do have a very hard time justifying every single bit. But the otaku teacher and her manga artist student, not manga artist necessarily, but her illustrator student are a particular highlight for me outside of the main cast. I was not expecting for what's it called, the little anime that they like to get its own opening. They really went the extra mile on that. I have to appreciate that. But yeah, it's fun. Next up is Sword of the Demon Hunter. The double-length first episode of this is really strong. Like, it's got a properly compelling narrative as a standalone episode with great potential to move forward with, and it nails all the emotional highs. Like, the moment where there's no music and Suzune is just stabbing Shiayuki's corpse over and over comes to mind. Like, chills. And I do have to appreciate that Jinya is not just some broody main character for the sake of it. Like, there are plenty of shows, dark fantasy shows like this, where you have the lead guy who was a soft-hearted kid, but then he gets betrayed or whatever, and then just trusts nobody, likes nobody, and is edgy for the sake of it for a while. Jinya's not really like that. Like, he is broody, but he also is still gentle with kids, makes new pals with reasonable ease, and even smiles fairly often. He's not just some edgy dude for the sake of it, which he absolutely could have been, and I would not have batted an eye, so fair play. And even beyond that, the fight animation and choreography throughout this is good as well. But as for following up the really strong first episode, it does not for me at all. At the end of the day, the majority of the show boils down to what can basically be described as demon hunting detective work. No events really connect to each other concretely. They don't escalate any overarching narrative or ultimately bring us any closer to a resolution to what happens in the first episode. It's only later on, in like the last quarter of this show, with the introduction of Nomari, that he actually has any significant character growth, Jinya. Oh, but that doesn't mean he tries any harder to track down his demon sister. Apparently he's biding his time because she's gonna disappear for 100 years and then show up again to kill a bunch of people and rule the world or whatever. Kind of sounds like Aang's evil twin. Disappears for 100 years, comes back to rule the world and kill everybody. But I guess he's biding his time, and that's why we end up not directly following up the events of the first episode. Like, we do see Suzune, like, once towards the end. I think, you know, a couple times throughout, but, like, she's actually nearby towards the end in, like, episode 22 or whatever. But only in a very brief subplot in one episode that's never touched on again, and instead for the last two episodes there's this cute but otherwise unimportant arc featuring a girl that time traveled to the past and met Jinya as a sort of like resolution to these weird scenes that have popped up from time to time throughout this, featuring Jinya and Ofu in high school in 2009, since, you know, they don't physically age, so they were just random scenes in the future or whatever. I guess the time travel arc is supposed to show how much Jinya has grown, maybe? But there's probably some guy on Reddit who's made a post about Jinya's very nuanced and well-executed character growth, but look, don't get me wrong, I think Jinya's character growth, when it does happen, is good. The things having a daughter will do for you, right? he like finds renewed meaning in the choices he's made up to this point and his way of life. He like reaffirms his resolve to slay demons, and when his demon form is revealed to Nomari, his daughter, and one of his friends, they're still able to overcome the dissonance and realize it's still him. And it's good stuff, but the amount of time it takes to get there, where it just does a lot of unrelated nothing, is a little hard to justify in my opinion. Because most of this is just a bunch of unrelated cases of demons messing things up in town in various ways. Like, I'll say a lot of it can be thought-provoking in terms of the themes behind each of the mini storylines, and the show throws in at least somewhat consequential twists and turns every now and then to keep you on your toes. Like, none of it's bad, it's all decent, and even sometimes pretty good, but most of it just doesn't contribute anything to the story, and I was kind of hoping for something more akin to Ragna Crimson or something, where it would just directly follow up. But, because the show kind of does remind me of Ragna Crimson in terms of, like, the dark fantasy vibes, but yeah, the show didn't really do it for me. It was started off super strong, and then just, I mean, it's fine, it's good, it's a good show, it is. But I was hoping for something else. Next up is Anne Shirley. Apparently this is a reboot of an old anime that aired in, like, 1979. Holy cow. Art style and visuals in this are nice. I think the voice acting is great too. Like, there's no complaints from me from a production perspective, and like the ye old North American setting of this one also sets it apart from basically all other anime. And I do think the characters are generally fine as well, especially given the setting and like the slice of life style. Anne is really big on having like a vivid imagination and using language to express herself, and sometimes words aren't enough to get what she wants across the way she wants to. And her expressiveness and wide range of emotions she constantly feels does make her a good lead for this show. And this really is a slice of life, because all it is just following Anne throughout various stages of her life, nothing more, nothing less, which is, it's compelling in itself to some extent, I guess. It's bittersweet to watch her like grow up as all her friends grow up alongside her. Eventually they drift further apart in various ways. Some kick the bucket, you know. It's the ups and downs of life. I'm not super big on historical stuff, period, or stuff with no real direction. So I found this one a little tough to care about on a personal level. And I kind of think the romance development between Anne and Gilbert is a little frustrating, because really, Anne rejects Gilbert in the last third or so of this show when he confesses, because she's just delusional and has like dreamed up this perfect 10 Prince Charming who she thinks is gonna show up one day. And then eventually he does, which is a good bit, right? But it's only that, it's only her Prince Charming, quote unquote, Prince Charming showing up that makes her fully realize that she actually does love Gilbert. And I don't know, that didn't really do it for me. But I do have to say, I think you can take away some meaningful things from this show, because at its core, these characters are just grateful for the lives they have and every experience they get to have every day, and they try to make the best of every day and the connections they have with others. Like I said, Anne has a vivid imagination, and this one seems to be about how life doesn't always turn out the way you hope or imagine it will, but you can still make the best of it. That's what I got from this show anyway. I think it's alright. Again, not really my thing though. I'd rather be watching One Piece. Summer Pockets. This is another visual novel adaptation. And if I had to sum up everything I'm about to say about this, I would say this is probably a really good visual novel. But yeah, it really reeks. It reeks of visual novel. You know, I covered Atri My Dear Moments a few seasons back. It has that same kind of visual novel feel for this to the setting. It's like this island isolated from everything else, so it's like the visual novel is like free to play around with the rules and the setting however it wants to without needing to bring in external factors. And also, it just so happens there are a handful of tens on the island for our main character to rizz up. Like, this is kind of like Summertime Render if it was a romance visual novel. Like, I do think it's good. It just takes a while to really understand the full scope of what's actually going on here. I believe this is the one that's by the creator of Charlotte, Angel Beats, what was the other thing? Day I Became a God. I think this is the one, a visual novel written by that person. You can tell. Now, first of all, Summer Pockets, the anime, it's visually beautiful. Great art style, great animation. The writing and dialogue, I think, is generally good. I like the characters a reasonable amount. It's all pretty mundane as you go through it, but it's not bad or anything. It's just a little bit boring for me. But it seems like what this one does, if I haven't looked up anything, I don't know. This is just my interpretation, if I'm correct. It cycles through all of the possible romance routes in the game, restarting the summer break each time. So we see, as the episodes go on, we see like Kamome's romance route, Tsumugi's, Ao's, Shiroha's romance route, and each one takes about 3 or 4 episodes or so. And all the while we are very slowly learning more and more about the supernatural mysteries of this island they're on. For what it's worth, Ao's route is my favorite. All right, now spoilers ahead. I'm about to drop the entire fucking shebang on you. You've been warned. If you're gonna watch this, stop watching this review now, because I am about to drop the entire thing on you. Here we go. The big reveal that all of these supernatural mysteries tie back to is that Umi, the little pink-haired girl, is actually Hairi, the main character, and Shiroha's daughter from the future. Shiroha died giving birth to her, so Hairi, in this timeline, took Umi and left the island, but couldn't care for her properly, so she yearned for fun summer memories or whatever. So, turns out, her lineage, this includes Shiroha and her mother as well, her lineage can have this ability to send their soul back in time to whence their heart desires and can, in theory, change the timeline. So, in short, Umi actually witnessed the restarting summers as we did, sort of. She was stuck on a loop where she would be part of Hairi's fun summer memories on repeat, so her fun summers never had to end and she could spend time with her parents, the younger version of her parents. But she didn't end up changing anything, and Shiroha, because she knew about the ability, Shiroha spent so much time while she was pregnant with the baby that would become Umi, researching her own ability, that she essentially fucked over her own health and died giving birth to Umi. So it was essentially Umi's own actions that cursed the timeline. So, and even her soul that traveled back in time to the repeating summer fun ended up fading out of the other character's perception. So even as the summers kept on restarting, she eventually ceased to exist to all of the people who were actually there. So Umi collected all of her force of will and was able to send her soul back to the point where Shiroha was a child. And at this point, when Shiroha was a child, her parents had just passed away in accidents, and Umi's goal was to help give Shiroha the strength to live, which she didn't really have up to this point in particular. Because this new version of her, of Umi, that went to Shiroha's childhood, ends up helping Shiroha so much, she actually paradoxes Umi. She paradoxes herself out of existence in consequence, because she changed the timeline so that Hairi and Shiroha wouldn't end up meeting the way that they always do in every timeline before, and therefore don't end up marrying. So there's an emotional scene of Umi fading out of existence in there somewhere, and then at the very last second in the last episode, Hairi jumps off the boat and goes over to see Shiroha and is like, he tries to riz her up anyway, so we're left with this sense of hope that Umi may be born again, just in a different way. Is it contrived? Yes. Does it hit emotionally? Yes. Does it make sense? Yes. That was a lot. So, the thing about it is, I think in the context of playing a visual novel, this would be a lot more charming as an experience. Because visual novels, they're like, take it line by line, get to know the characters, get up to silly shit for no reason. That's the kind of thing you expect from visual novels. But in the context of an anime, it's just not really the experience I want, if that makes sense. Like, for me, in the first, 3 quarters of this, I was constantly asking myself, what is the point of any of this? And turns out there was no point. But that's what I mean. In a visual novel, those scenes with no real meaning feel charming and fun. And even, say you're playing the visual novel, you're gonna go through each of the routes. If you get brief little scenes that feature Umi like that, like we see in the anime, it bumps the intrigue up, like, oh man, am I doing something right by restarting the game to play through every single route? It would be super effective as a way to keep you playing the visual novel and seeing all the content that's there. And in the visual novel, those scenes that are super mundane and serve no real purpose, they're just fun because you're engaging with it actively. And I'm not saying they're not fun in the anime, but it's just a different medium, right? Because you're passively watching in the context of an anime versus actively engaging in a visual novel. I would just get more out of the experience playing the visual novel. Because if only half of what I was watching in the anime ultimately means anything to the story that's ultimately told, it sort of feels like a waste. And I really don't like time paradoxes that much either. But, I don't know. Alright, moving on to sequels. Don Da Don, Season 2. This is still fucking awesome. Big surprise. It's just super weird, off-the-wall, quirky fun with these delightful characters, awesome battle sequences, batshit insane, ghostly, alien-y shenanigans. Fucking rules, man. This season is a little all over the place, but it actually might be better overall than the first season, if only because there's just so much variety in what it gets through. The animation is just still unbelievable, and the way the action is choreographed as well is amazing. Like, it just continues to impress so much in the visual department, and even the character growth in this season is good, since, thankfully, at least Okarun, out of everybody, at least someone, he can't just rely on Turbo Granny's powers. He actually has to work to control them properly and learn the right way to use them. He learns, the battle rhythm or whatever. And I actually found this season funnier than the first two. Just the way it handles a lot of the scenes with Evil Eye, the pauses, the timing in those are really funny. The introduction of Sakata is hilarious. And a lot of just, throwaway scenes are just surprisingly funny. The band exorcism comes to mind. And as always, the romance between Momo and Okarun is so cute and so fun. This is one of those series that's super fun as a manga, but is absolutely meant to be an anime. Especially with how much love the studios put into every single aspect of this adaptation. Animation quality, attention to detail, storyboarding, it's just special. It really is. Honest to God, I don't even know what else to tell you. Don Don could have an arc about living toaster ovens, and I'd probably say it's the best thing ever. Really good stuff. Alright, Kaiju number 8, Season 2. It's still good, man! It's still good, man! This has a solid direction for the story. Again, still has great animation. Just super solid all around. I said it last time when I reviewed Season 1. This is so foundationally strong. It just has all the pieces to build a really solid story, even if it's nothing groundbreaking. And even if this is the middling part of Kaiju number 8. It just proves itself with every fight scene, and with the way it handles its characters and their growth and the twists and turns the story takes. It's just super solid stuff. Again, the formula for this story is absolutely nothing groundbreaking, but it's so foundationally strong. It's just so, it's like a fundamental storytelling 101 course in anime form. Even at this point, it's Season 2, the world is still expanding. We've only just met Narumi in this season. He's a pretty important character. And Kafka is learning to deal with life in the first division, since the third division is on temporary hold, whatever, he fucking exploded the entire thing or whatever. And he's also dealing with the aftermath of the Defense Force learning about how he's actually Kaiju number 8. Plus there's the stuff with Isao, we learn more about Hikaru, which is nice. Reno tests that numbers weapon he's matched with. Even Hoshinam dealing with the weapons number 10 is fun in its own right. Adds another interesting wrinkle to the dynamic between everything that's going on. Like, this isn't as exciting as the first season, but that's totally necessary, because if we do end up getting more of this anime in the future, there's going to be a lot of fighting going forward. I mean, yeah, like, I just like the world and the characters that Kaiju number 8 has established. Like, this show feels really nice to come back to. It's so rock solid. It's so rock solid to the point, like, it almost feels like, not that it can't do no wrong, but you just have full faith that it won't. Like, we're still adding new aspects to characters like Hikaru, again, like Reno, Hoshina. Everybody is like developing as a character, even if it's slowly. Again, even for this middling point, it's absolutely enjoyable. Good stuff. Next up is Sakamoto Days, Part 2. Look at all these jump manga. Getting anime part 2s. This actually moves through the story of Sakamoto Days surprisingly fast, and I don't mind it at all. Again, I love Sakamoto Days. It is super fun. It is ultra fun. It is the most fun. I mean, there really aren't many, if any, other anime that can blend humor with compelling characters, fun and solid action, and a fast-paced story quite like Sakamoto Days can. Again, this is a part 2, so it bounces off from what happened in part 1 like seamlessly, just boom, just continues immediately from where part 1 left off, and it just demolishes the story. Just blasts through it, and it's fast-paced, it's a blast to go through. It always keeps you on your toes. Even if it's not always doing the most exciting shit, it is usually a blast to watch, and good has a great sense of humor throughout as well. And I love the focus on Sheen to become a little more independent this season. He develops his ESP into his foresight ability within this part, and there's a lot of emphasis on him, how he's not able to fight exactly like Sakamoto, who he looks up to so much. He's not able to fight exactly like Sakamoto does. And Sheen learns to find his own way to fight and protect what he cares about. And we meet quite a fair bit of new characters as well. It just continues to be so much fun. Like, it's fast-paced, but it doesn't feel rushed. I mean, again, it keeps you on your toes with these new characters that get introduced. They're gimmicky, but not to the point that they feel annoying. They don't feel out of place or anything. They all have their own unique way to contribute to the sense of humor. The action scenes are still solid. Not the best thing ever. There are other anime with better action scenes for sure. But for the sake of the humor, Sakamoto Days absolutely makes it work. Because it really is just it's a comedic action show. Like, that's what it is. So, for the sake of that, it totally nails it. So yeah, I've said it once and I'll say it a million times more. Sakamoto Days fucking rules. Next. Call of the Night Season 2. Now, you may recall, back in the summer of 22, I wasn't too fussed about this show, but I actually read the manga about a year or so ago, and I changed my tune about this show. Not dramatically or anything. Like, I'm still not the hottest on it or anything, and while I do think it's a solid manga, again, the anime is totally where it's at. I mean, it's one of those that just brings the source material up at least a few levels. Like, everything from the visuals and animation, storyboarding and pacing, writing and voice acting, it is all primo stuff, man. Like, as a production, Call of the Night is legitimately top notch. Like, the moment that comes to mind this season when I remember being like, oh fuck, this is really good, was the moment when Kabura is talking to Haru on the roof of the hospital. I think it was like episode 4, at the end of episode 4. That whole backstory had been really well done, but that scene was something else. And I've mentioned it before, this has the same thing going on as the summer Hikaru died, which was in the Roundup video. And like Chainsaw Man and stuff, I feel like I have a better grasp of what exactly that feeling is that I get from these shows. It's exactly what I said about The Summer Hikaru Died. It's almost like a slice of life, a peek into a bizarre, fucked up reality that we can't fully understand. You know, we watch these characters go through these supernatural experiences and deal with complex emotions that we'll never be able to comprehend fully, and they deal with them as if they were normal people living in a parallel world to ours. It's not over-dramatic with loud and obnoxious characters like anime of yesteryear. It's trying to be as realistic as possible while putting these characters through wild supernatural experiences. Even as far as the story itself goes, it's not a straight line. There are usually multiple things happening at once, and sometimes new things will start without resolving the last thing first. And characters will grow at an unsteady rate, and there's always shades of gray to every character, and who they are, who they become. No one's necessarily morally right or wrong, or morally superior to anybody else. Unless they are. There is one character who is definitely in the wrong, although she will be focused on more if we get more of this anime. She only is briefly introduced here. All that is to say, things kind of just happen in this show, but a lot of it does tie the world we see together really nicely, and it does a lot of interesting stuff to keep it feeling fresh. The truth of Nazuna's birth comes to mind. You know, again, shades of gray. And actually, this season is primarily about exploring Nazuna's past, and the backstory with her and Anko is surprisingly compelling as well. The characters in this season I actually find to be overall enjoyable to watch, like, you know, namely Nazuna and Ko, the main two. And anyone else is fine, but each one, even among the supporting cast, they do kind of serve a purpose, and no one really takes up space where they're not needed. So even disregarding the excellent production quality, I find this show entertaining, so that's all I can ask for. Alright, a couple of Cuckoos, Season 2. This is alright. Season 1, it started out with this cute little concept and premise, and now, at this point, we've devolved into a kind of just run-of-the-mill harem show, which I guess is fine. You know, it's not necessarily bad, but it's pretty easy to tell that we're just kind of dragging things out for the sake of it at this point, and it's only the second season. The introduction of Ai does help a bit, I think, because imagine if Ai wasn't introduced and it kept this same lack of progression, but she really doesn't serve all that much purpose to the bigger picture. A lot of things that happen are pretty much solely meant to devolve into fan service, and even the things that are supposed to be more meaningful ultimately result in a very vague sense of bringing Nagi and usually Erika closer together. They'd be like, oh, I don't know if she thinks so, but I think Erika and me are a little closer now. Maybe. I don't know. Ever since Nisekoi set the standard for harem shows like this, I always just feel like, man, why are we doing all this? We all know how it's gonna end. In spite of all the odds and what he himself thinks, the main guy is gonna fall in love with the girl who suddenly came into his life with a bang and changed it so drastically at the start of the series. It always happens. And I'm still up to date with this manga, and I still feel that way. We're just dragging things out. And I don't want to say fan service is worthless, because ultimately, that's any harem show's bread and butter. And it hasn't failed yet. It can get eyes on any show. I don't know how many, but it can get eyes on the show. But I definitely did not get as much out of this season as the first, and it's not because it's half the length. The characters are fine, though. They're whatever. Again, we've entered run-of-the-mill harem show territory here. They're fine. It's fine. Reborn as a vending machine. I now wander the dungeon. Season 2. I can't believe it, but this is still pretty fun. It feels a bit stop-start plot-wise, but other than that, it really is still solid all around. I mean, I can't deny it. I said it last time, and I'll say it again. It's still good. I say it's stop-start. It just feels a little directionless sometimes, because the main cast spends a good chunk of this season getting randomly teleported around to different parts of the dungeon. But it does lead to them meeting some new characters, and even the new ones are generally welcome additions and have interesting things about them, so it's fine. And there are actually a handful of moments that really help shape and define characters we knew from last season as well, so I actually found myself getting kind of attached to a good chunk of the main cast, which is nice. And I really was not expecting the twist that happened around the middle of this season. Maybe I just wasn't paying enough attention, but a defection by important characters that we knew from last season was not on my bingo card for season 2 of this show. It really does much more than I expect to keep things interesting. And by God, the feet guy has a backstory. I'm stunned. He actually has a reason why he likes feet. I didn't introduce the fact that there was a feet guy in this season, but there's a feet guy. He likes feet. And he has a backstory that legitimately explains why he likes feet. And it's like emotional, kind of. I am blown away. Actually, the feet guy made me laugh a lot in this season. Anyway, yeah, this is still fun with a story that is more compelling than a story with a vending machine as the main character should be. I mean, that's an isekai for you, I guess. Man. Vending machine. It's good. I can't help it. Alright, I was reincarnated as the 7th prince so I can take my time perfecting my magical ability, Season 2. Oh man, this was good last season too, but this season actually gets balls deep into its story and it absolutely pays off. Like, this was proper compelling. It's nothing groundbreaking, for sure, but it totally got me invested and there's a surprising amount to it. And it resolves and comes full circle by the end of the season, so that is an absolute win in my book. First off, and this was the case last season as well, but the fight choreography in this show is really good. Fights are super fun to watch. I think it especially helps that they generally pick their big fights with intention. They're very deliberate. The fights that get the most love are the ones that are very deliberate matchups. And the ones that make the most sense to be intense from a story perspective as well. And I think it's worth mentioning that I've talked trash about shows where the main character is so overpowered that nothing is a challenge to him, so they never struggle and it becomes boring. This show doesn't fall under that umbrella for me. For one, it's not like Lloyd is out there fighting every single enemy. A lot of his pals are out there fighting, and they struggle. And sort of tangential to that, the enemies Lloyd does fight are actually at least close to a match for him. So Lloyd does at least have to try a little bit to adjust the way he uses magic to defeat them. And of course, the whole premise is that Lloyd is crazy overpowered. So I can give this one a pass. Probably not fair to other shows I've talked shit about, but hey, this one does it right in my opinion. So the characters in this show are generally solid. Lloyd is a pretty good lead, and his supporting cast really do help prop him up while also maintaining their own individuality and playing into the dynamic going on. Like, other than Lloyd, Babylon was a particular highlight for me. He was the leader of that assassin group that was like the enemies, that were like the enemies of last season. And his role in this season made a solid character out of him. Like, his stuff with Escher in the first half was great. Again, who, by the way, was another highlight for me. And even his more comedic role in the second half as like the group chef, it not only gives him more layers as a character, but just serves well to this show's surprisingly consistently good sense of humor. Like, the edible pig bit really stands out as one of the funniest parts of this show. And other characters that I liked last season and still do, like Tao and Sylphie, get good defining moments this season as well. There's a big schmoz of a final battle this season that sort of includes all of the characters' final battles, so to speak, and the show goes full Demon Slayer. It gives most of the bad guys that they face some amount of backstory, and if not the bad guys, it dives a little deeper into some of the good guys who we know less about, which it really didn't need to do. but it absolutely made me a little more attached to these characters or a little more invested in the story, so they totally served their purpose. World building in this show isn't a primary focus or anything, and it's not like I get how any of Lloyd's magic baloney works, but this show, including last season, is overall much more enjoyable than I expected it to be, and it's just a ball of fun for what seems like it'd be a run-of-the-mill isekai. So, next up is Toilet Bound Hanako-kun, Season 2, Part 2. I actually struggled to figure out how to even review this one, because I think it really nailed what it was going for. Like, we finally got to explore Aoi's character deeper, which was a pleasant surprise, and I think the romance between her and Akane, red, orange hair boy, it works pretty well. It's a bit shoujo-y, but I think it's fine. We also finally learned more about Ko's older brother, which was nice as well, because he was always this sort of weird anomaly. Like, we knew he was an exorcist and a really strong one, but he never really had an important role to play until now, so that was nice. On top of that, we even got to learn more about Tsukasa, which was a welcome surprise. And the story of this part 2 also felt more linear and sensible in comparison to previous parts, just because the story had been telling since the start of this season actually pretty much came full circle at the end of this season. Not this part 2, I guess, rather. Although it did leave on a cliffhanger. But this part has a lot of different things happening, and not all of them relate to each other, but they all ended up kind of coming to a head within the last 2 episodes in this one big schmoz of plot all at once, which I thought actually worked pretty well for how mishmash it was. And overall, there were a lot of good character moments for a variety of characters throughout this. Ko especially really held his own this season. He definitely earned his supporting main character role for me. I kind of thought he was just okay before, but he really impressed me with a few strong moments this season. But for me, this series has always been carried by Nene. I think she's just a delight. I love characters who are just straightforward, hardworking, and a little vulnerable. And Nene is just a perfect lead for this story for me. Like, Hanako's fine as well, and I do sort of understand why he plays everything so coy. It makes sense for his character. But he sort of rubs me the wrong way sometimes. But it does feel like he's getting better as a character and less annoying to me as the romance has been developing. So anyway, this whole series has kind of over-delivered to me. When I started it, I kind of thought it would just be this goofy little rom-com with ghosts in it, but it's managed to build a pretty interesting world with well-defined and charming characters leading us through it, with a story that actually has me invested. It's really enjoyable. It's really fun. Whoo, next up is Grand Blue Dreaming Season 2. Man, this is just peak degeneracy. It's so chaotic and hilarious. And degeneracy here is an affectionate term. So, honestly, I really don't think I need to touch too much on this one, because it just does a really solid job of continuing exactly what it was doing in Season 1 and just keeping it as dumb and as funny as it was before. It has a very specific comedic appeal, and if you get it, you get it, right? Like, its fast-paced, off-the-wall style of comedy really works well for it, and it still mixes in some great warm, fuzzy vibes as well. Like, I wouldn't say it has a narrative or overall story, per se, aside from maybe Iori learning more about diving and the budding romance with Chisa? Chisa is her name. Which I think the small amount of romance development between those two this season was pretty good for what it was. But no one thing that they do has more or less meaning than anything else that they do. It's just all one big jumble of stupid, and it's great that way. And some of the new characters we meet this season are a lot of fun too. Like, I like the pink-haired girl, I forget her name. Like, her dynamic with Iori is a particular highlight for me this season. And like I said, I think Chisa and Iori's little slow burn romance is cute as well. I'm happy we got a Season 3 announced for this already. This is great fun. So dumb. It's exactly what it wants to be. It just hits the nail on the head. Rent-a-Girlfriend, Season 4. Well, the first 90 seconds of this season were a 30-second recap and 60 seconds of Kazuya jacking off. And that's where we're at. I could honestly stop this review right there. Listen, right? This manga is a legitimate means of torture. Reading a new chapter every week is the equivalent of waxing your pubic hair every Tuesday. But legitimately, the anime kind of burns through the story, making it a lot more fast-paced. It covers like 4 chapters an episode. I kind of can't help but enjoy it for how unbelievably stupid it is. The thing about Rent-a-Girlfriend post-movie arc is that its second biggest offense is just wasting my time. Which I can take, right? A lot of manga and anime have wasted my time. It's an absolute slog to get through and feels directionless a lot of the time. But its number one biggest offense is Kazuya's complete lack of character growth. I mean, you'd think that all of this time he spent around all these girls would have helped him, I don't know, learn something, grow as a person. But no, he's the same useless idiot he's always been. He's never the one that ends up making any worthwhile moves on anyone, including Chizuru. He always bails out. It's the women making moves on him. And it also just can't seem to pull the trigger on anything without a bunch of pointless drama beforehand and a combined 35 minutes of Kazuya monologuing to himself about goddamn nothing. Not to mention, where it wants to go when it does have direction is stupid and usually just causes more worthless drama. But despite how bad it is, I just can't help but come back to it. It's this unbelievable dumpster fire, and I have to know how it ends. I might be a masochist. And you know, it's not like I don't like to see the characters having fun. Like when they're at the pool or whatever and they're all just enjoying themselves, it's not like I feel nothing. So I must at least kind of like these characters or have some amount of attachment to them. It's not the case for some other shows. I might have Stockholm Syndrome. I think that might be what it is. Now, you know who I don't have Stockholm Syndrome for? Mommy. I truly do not understand why Mommy is in this story. She just makes everything worse. Impressive, I know. Just don't even... If you haven't started around a girlfriend, do not start. Just don't. The Rising of the Shield Hero, Season 4. This is pretty solid. Visually, in terms of like animation, it's a little bit inconsistent. There are some really properly cool and exciting sequences sometimes, and then other times the fights feel overly clunky for no real reason. But I do think the good stuff pretty comfortably outweighs the weirdly stiff animation. The lead up to Foal's beast transformation is legitimately top notch. Like, it rounds out his little character arc as well, which is nice. You know, his little character arc was like, he started off not really trusting Naofumi, and now they're cool. They dive into his and Atla's past a bit as well in this season. In terms of the story, like, the first half is a little slow, and then when they do get to Katenlo, it feels a bit rushed. Again, it's not bad here. Like, I don't know her name, but Sedina's little sister, her arc isn't bad. Like, it's decently compelling. And I think the work on Raftalia's character this season is good as well. But I just think overall, story-wise, this is the least interesting of the sequel seasons so far. Season 2 and Season 3 just felt a little more compelling overall. It is still very much Shield Hero, and we did get Season 5 announced, so I don't know if that's going to be the last season of the anime that they do, but it does seem like a lot of this is building up to like the Phoenix fight that they're going to have next season. We'll see how it all goes, but it's certainly not bad. It's just not quite as consistent story-wise as the previous 2 seasons. I mean, Season 1's, of course, pretty comfortably the best of all of them, but this is still not bad. Again, like, I've said this about shows in previous roundups. If you've come this far in Shield Hero, you're probably in it for the long haul, so you're probably willing to accept just the slight dip in consistency. I think next season will be pretty good, though. Next up is My Dress Up Darling, Season 2. This is so fun. Again, this is another one I think I've changed my tune a little bit about since the last time I covered it. Of course, I did praise the first season of Dress Up Darling as well, but I do believe I've expanded my horizons considerably. Since then, that was only the second ever roundup when season 1 aired. My second ever roundup video. And my horizons have expanded quite considerably since then. And I have a very newfound appreciation for Dress Up Darling, for sure. This has super expressive animation, fun character dynamics, solid writing, good vibes all around. And to give it credit where credit is due, it does a lot with cosplay this season. And outside of its good vibes, there really isn't much to this show, and there doesn't need to be. Like, the good vibes of this show are actually kind of overwhelming that they just make me feel warm and fuzzy while watching this show. But to give credit where credit's due, it actually does get way more into the cosplay aspect in this season. It feels like in comparison to the first season, it's a more of a casual approach to the world of cosplay compared to another show about cosplaying, which I love a lot, but that really works to this one's favor. It digs into everything, including costume creation, makeup, the whole process, without ever feeling like it's dragging you too deep into the rabbit hole. It's like a non-committal deep dive into cosplaying, and again, in comparison to another show about cosplaying that I love, that one doesn't really focus on the actual creation aspect of the costumes, so that's a good place where this one differs. And again, that also really fits Gojo as a character. And the new cosplayer characters who are introduced this season are nice as well. Like, they add some good new perspectives to everything. I particularly like the scene where a couple of the cosplayer ladies convince Juju that she doesn't need to quit being a nerd and a cosplayer just because she's an adult. Maybe it hits close to home for me, but it's also something I've held the line with personally for a long time in my own life. And speaking of that, I do think there's a good amount you can take away from this show about just living your best life, about interpersonal connections and the like. And the romance is nothing crazy, but it is very charmingly sweet. It's just a very warm, good vibe show. And that's all it needs to be. And Cloverworks is obviously killing it. Of course they are. And Marin is still a gift to society. Thanks very much. And finally, Rascal does not dream of Santa Claus. I have a complicated history with this series. I can't bring myself to fully say I care about it, but it is good. I don't know how many times I can watch Sakata walk up to some girl, sit 3 feet away, sit in silence for 3 seconds, and then have a conversation with that girl that's like half cryptic nonsense that may or may not be relevant to the plot, and half weird quips that aren't even remotely clever or funny most of the time. But it's not a bad show by any means. And all that being said, I actually did like the movie that came just before this season. It was a very condensed dose of this series, and it worked a lot better for me. It had a really good arc that rounded out well with a good emotional ending, and some of the lingering mysteries from that movie roll over into this season. A lot of what happened this season was perfectly fine. In fact, I like Ikumi's character arc from the first half of this season. It was a bit of a slog, but it won me over in the end. Uzuki's little thing is halfway decent too, or maybe I just like idols. Sarah's little arc is fine, but not quite as endearing to me, I guess. And as for the Toko stuff, I think the mystery of it was good, at least. Like, it was at least kind of interesting and engaging to watch Sakuta, like, pick up pieces of, like, the dreams his friends had one at a time as the mystery becomes more and more clear. The resolution to the Toko stuff was a bit anticlimactic for me, but it still rounded out the overall story well enough. That being said, I'm not crystal clear on how the parallel timeline works, but I'm not gonna think about it too hard. I'm an idiot after all, so. But yeah, Ikumi's arc is definitely the highlight for me of this season. I actually like her quite a bit. But yeah, like, overall, this is a solid addition to the series. It's incredibly consistent across all of its seasons and movies and whatnot. It's this quirky little slice of life romance with elements of supernatural mystery hanging over the whole thing. It's absolutely enjoyable if you're the type of person who likes slice of life stuff. I only sort of wish I could say I really cared about this show, but again, it's not really for me. I think it is a good show, but I'd rather be watching One Piece. And there you have it. 44 shows reviewed this roundup. I don't think I'll get anywhere close to this ever again. So enjoy it while it lasts. Because it won't happen again. Now I just dread winter. Winter is going to be diabolical. Winter 2026 is already looking insane. I think it's like, not that I'm not going to review all of them. It's like Free-Rent is already on there, Hell's Paradise, Jujutsu Kaisen, Fire Force. There's one other thing, Oshinoko, Medalist. I like Medalist. But still, there's a lot of shit! And only about half of those 6 are even going to be on the roundup. Actually, Free-Rent might be 2 cores. Maybe even 2 of them will be on the roundup, like Oshinoko and Medalist, and that'll be it. But still, it's looking diabolical January. But fall is actually not looking that bad at all. I'm going to break my rules next roundup, because I'm going to cover Gachiakuta first. Suck my balls.